Great to welcome to our Book Talk segment today one of the co-authors of a very useful book. That's what it's called, The Useful Book. 201 life skills they use to teach in home ec and shop. We're joined by Sharon Bowers today from up in, I believe, New York City. Sharon, good to talk with you. How are you?
Hi, good. Thanks for having me.
You're in New York, right?
Yes.
It's my former hometown. How are things up there?
Good. Hot.
Hot, yes. Hot in New York in June and early July. So that's the way it's supposed to be, I guess, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for writing this book. As someone who wants to be someone that can fix things, I'm not always that good at it, but this is going to help me. So I'm sure I'm one of many out there that'll feel the same way.
Well, that is one of the problems that we noticed. That, there was a time in America when everybody took home ec and shop classes, and now, down the years with budget cuts, and I think also maybe a school of thought that these things were no longer essential, there's a whole generation of people who emerge not having some really basic life skills that we used to consider part of a well-rounded education. So initially, as we conceived this, our editor thought we would be speaking to young people who had not had the privilege of a home ec or a shop class at some point. And then we started to realize that there were all sorts of adults who didn't know a lot of these things too. So we sort of tried to write it assuming absolutely no knowledge and yet a great deal of ability. We literally start with how to boil water, but by the time you come to the end of the shop section, the second half, we're into like metalworking, which in truth you may never really want to do, but it is one of the skills they would have taught you one day in the shop.
Yeah, the high school I went to, we had shop class, but we didn't have home ec, so I kind of wish we did. I mean, I know a little bit about cooking and stuff, but it would have been nice to know it, to learn it then. I think it would help a lot of people out if you learn those simple things early on.
It does, because they're sort of basic building blocks that then give you the confidence to think that you can go on and do more. And if you never got those, it makes it really hard. If you didn't start with boiling water and move on, it's really hard to get dinner on the table.
Especially now, if you have to live alone or live in an apartment for a while and you don't have anybody to cook for you, it's good to know how to do that, or else you spend a lot of money in restaurants.
It's true. In fact, someone said to me earlier today that there was some statistic that showed that Americans now spend more in restaurants than we do in supermarkets, and I don't know if that's just a function of the prices in restaurants, but I think overall what it is that we aren't, in some ways, we aren't quite as self-sufficient, as we once were. I think our parents and grandparents had a whole range of skill levels that they wouldn't have dreamed of calling in someone to pay to do a job for them, like, rewiring a lamp or changing the oil in a car or, a wealth of things, even making bread, that they didn't think of paying for because, of course, they knew how to do it themselves. And one of my favorite examples is my dry cleaner on the corner in New York wants $35 to hem a pair of pants, and it's going to take a week or 10 days. And I'm like, I can do that. I'm not going to pay someone to do that when I need some pins and a needle and thread or a sewing machine and a bit of chalk, and I'll do it in 20 or 30 minutes that night,
Well, my grandparents, I remember grandmother and even my mother, I don't know if anybody learns to knit anymore, but they would knit. She would do crocheting, what they used to call Afghans. I don't know if that term is still used. My grandmother baked bread. My mother, also a great baker as well. My grandfather built parts to fix his car, and I guess you can't do that quite as much anymore with all the computerization. But I mean, they did that out of necessity, because that's so good to know that stuff. They knew it kind of instinctively out of necessity, but people have kind of lost that, I guess.
It's true, and it's not to say that of course we've come on a long way, and there are some things that people used to do very labor-intensively by themselves that now we can have done inexpensively or buy already done or made for us. But on the other hand, I think it's not simply about the cost. There's also you're kind of helpless if your sink backs up and the only thing you know to do is to call a plumber and have them be on your schedule, whereas, and I will admit the whole shop side of the book is more my husband, who's not on the line today, so I wouldn't want you to quiz me too closely, but even I know that you turn off the water to the sink and you get down there with a bucket and a wrench and you take out the U-bend and remove the gunk, you don't just pour a bunch of corrosive chemicals down the drain and hope for the best,
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think you don't have to be a plumber expert, but if you just know a couple of things, you're going to save yourself a lot of money, I imagine.
Yeah, and also, you don't have to be like, oh my gosh, it's Friday night and this just happened and I can't get anybody to help me till Monday morning. There's certain things that you should be able to fix, and also basic maintenance around your own home. One of my husband's theories is things like leaky taps and stuff. You don't just ignore it. You don't just hope it'll go away, because anytime you have, dripping water anywhere in your house, it's going to lead to trouble sooner or later, and often sooner.
You break it down, as you talked, into different categories: laundry, domestic arts. I think the life skills section is going to help, particularly young people nowadays. Some of those that are kind of interesting, how to make a budget. That's a huge one, right? A lot of people don't even have any idea how to make a budget.
Yes. When we were initially drafting all the skills that we thought needed to be taught, we were well north of like 400, and our editor, as editors do, was like, I think we can bring this down just a little bit. But I was glad that we had room for a few grace notes, like thank you notes. I was raised where, you wrote a thank you note to people, a personal one, and you didn't just text them, got it,
me
thanks
too.
a lot.
Right. You had to do it after your mother said you sit down and write your thank you notes now.
Exactly. And even now I'm trying to teach that to my two boys who are 10 and 13, and it's not just thanks. You don't even just write down thanks, I got it. I feel like thank you notes are sort of one of those life skills where you put a few lines. You acknowledge that another human being made an effort to give you something, like thank you for the book. It was just what I wanted. I loved it. I read it that weekend. Or thank you for the beautiful sweater. I wore it to the football game and everybody liked it and made my eyes look bright. You want to acknowledge another human being on the other side who's done something for you.
How to tie a tie. That's a big one right there. Your dad hopefully will teach you how to do that, but if not, nobody really will teach you how to do that anymore.
Well, and then my other particular favorite, following immediately on the heels in the book of How to Tie a Tie, is how to tie a tie on someone else.
Right. You have to reverse the process almost.
Yes, I kind of had to teach myself. My husband, being a woodworker and a carpenter, honestly doesn't wear a tie a whole lot of times, but I was like, I've always wanted to know how to do this, and I'm like, if I can mix a martini and tie a tie on someone else, I feel like I'm pretty set for whatever life's going to throw at me.
Well, you said you had almost, I guess, over 400. You just kind of made a big list between you and your husband and whittled it down that way, and then
yeah, we kind of got it down to the 201 that we and our editor considered essential. So, once you get into the shop section, a lot of it are things. The home ec section is definitely things you're probably going to do on a more daily basis. Cooking, how to make a decent pot of coffee, how to make lemonade, how to get dinner on the table in 30 minutes, how to keep your fridge well stocked. These are much more sort of everyday. How to do laundry, how to get a dingy T-shirt white again. Whereas in the shop section, you've much more got things like you're not going to be caulking your windows or replacing window panes all the time, or unblocking your gutters regularly, just not all the time. But these are things that we also felt were extremely important home skills. If nothing else, what if you were raised in an apartment in New York City and you grow up to live in a house and you don't know how to fix things in a house? It's really important not to be so helpless. It's kind of about self-sufficiency, and it's kind of about not paying people to do things you're perfectly capable of doing.
Name of the book, The Useful Book, 201 Life Skills They Used to Teach in Home Ec and Shop, and Sharon Bowers has been our guest. And Sharon, give it a website. People get more information.
We don't have one, I have to say, but the book is widely available everywhere, and I hope you'll go out and get one for your new graduate heading off into the world by themselves.
Great idea. Sharon, great to talk with you. Thanks for being with us, and hopefully we can do it again.
Thanks so much.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles Media.